If you've been following this channel for a while, then you probably know that I'm very much into vocal effects. However, I am not at all into vocal tuning because the T-Pain vocal tuning effect completely ruined vocal tuning for me.
I can find no words to keep you here with me.
Oh my gosh, stop.
I absolutely hate it. And if you're getting bent out of shape from me saying that, then just listen. If you're into the T-Pain vocal tuning effect, you need to go somewhere else.
Because Humanoid is not that. It doesn't sound like the T-Pain effect at all. And even though the T-Pain effect doesn't sound natural at all, it sounds way more natural than Humanoid does.
I can feel the love deep down in your heart. I can feel the pain holding us apart. I can find no words to keep you here with me. Even though my eyes are closed, I can watch you leave. Even though my eyes are closed.
Now, sitting down and actually reading the patent for Antares auto-tuning and reading about other auto-tuning effects, most of them use this fast Fourier transform type of algorithm to break down the voice and to repitch it and stuff. Now, Humanoid also uses an FFT-like algorithm, but what I understand is that you can utilize this technique in different ways. There are variations of this technique, plus when you re-synthesize the voice, there are different ways of doing that. And in the case of Humanoid, they are using additive synthesis to re-synthesize the voice.
I've told you once, and I'm not telling you again. So listen, stop, off, keep your feet off my beat. You've been warned, ha! Now I've told you once, and I'm not telling you again. So listen, stop, off, keep your feet off my beat. You've been warned, ha! Right? Listen up.
Now, on top of that, they actually put a phase vocoder in here, and this thing has its own wavetable oscillator, which is full of waveforms, and they give you synth control so you can wave shape those waveforms. This gives you a unique sound to your vocoder that you're putting on top of that auto-tuner robotizing thing.
I don't wanna run from you no more. 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 Run from you no more. I don't wanna 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 run from you no more.
This is the first plugin with an emphasis on vocal tuning that I've ever liked. And not only do I like it, I'm absolutely in love with it. I think Baby Audio did something really cool here. This is so dope. Now, I know that there are people out there who say that maybe they're not into vocals and just can't sing, or those of us who aren't good enough to sing in order to use stuff like this properly. Well, you really don't have to be good at singing in order to use one of these plugins. You can talk into this thing. You can pick up samples from a sample pack and run it through this thing.
Stop it. Get to me. Why are you running?
Getting Humanoid adds something new to your toolbox, especially if you're into auto-tuning from the get-go. You probably have some auto-tuning plugins, or maybe you have that one that you like. Here you have something different. I've invested the past 30 years into learning synthesis and understanding how synthesizers work. And quite frankly, Humanoid kind of wedges itself right into there, along with vocoders and some other stuff. It's just that it's doing auto-tuning also on top of it. Yeah, Baby Audio, you did a good thing here.
I wanted to reach that heart and tear it apart. Then again, I kinda needed it. Thinking back to the time when pain blurred my eyes, I just know what I have to do. So I take a step, moving forward, and I keep on walking, never looking back. I found a way.
Now, vocal plugins are sensitive little babies, special snowflakes, because they are so sensitive to rapidly changing amplitudes, and also they can have problems with hard consonants like K, P, and T's. And when it comes to the sibilants, like the S's and F's, can also be a little bit of a chore to deal with. So I always pre-process all of my audio before I actually send it into a vocal plugin. And it doesn't matter whether it's an auto-tuner, harmonizer, or a vocoder. Now, depending on the vocal plugin I'm using, the chain of plugins will change, but I do use the same types most of the time. I always use Brusfri, Swedish plugin, Swedish name, made by Klevgrant Produkter. It's basically a noise removal, best one on iOS, bar none. And I do this to clean up my audio from an overly loud ventilation shaft. Now, I also use a de-esser to deal with sibilants, and in this case, it's the same company, Klevgrant Produkter. But here I want to highlight the fact that you might not need to add your own de-esser plugin, even if you have a favorite, because you could just get to know the one that is in the utility section in Humanoid. Now, I also use an equalizer, and in this case it's from FabFilter. And I use this to further shape the spectral content in my voice, because there are some problem areas, some bumps I like to iron out so that I don't get a crackle in my vocal effect. Now, one thing to add here is that there is a control called Sharpen, and this is basically like a pre-made EQ curve that helps your sound cut through the mix. There is a calibration mode where you're basically just tilting this pre-made EQ curve to either a darker sound or a brighter sound. Just remember that this is here, and if you really want control over your voice when you're pre-processing it, you might want to turn it down. Then again, I'm not even sure where in the effect chain this thing is placed, and I wish that Baby Audio would have included a signal flow chart in their manual. Now, I always like keeping track of my dynamics and keeping them in check, but I don't want it to be flat. But for this, I use a compressor, and it's also from FabFilter. Lastly, I'm using a limiter from FabFilter, but not to limit my audio. No, I only use it to monitor the result I'm getting from all the other processing. Okay, so some people would like to add gates to a signal chain like this, and in the case of Humanoid, you won't need that because you already have a gate in there. And if we look closely, we can see that there are cogwheels all over the place in this plugin, and they will open menus for you. So for the gate, we actually have control over the envelope, so we can control attack, hold, and release. And for the de-esser, we actually get control over the attack and the sensitivity. Now, the most important thing here when working with vocal plugins, the choice of mic, your voice, these things create specific characters and they will differ drastically from mine, which is why I'm not giving you any settings to put into your vocal processing chain, because these settings are for my voice, my mic, my setup, and so they won't matter to you. So, Humanoid offers up 3 different types of pitching modes, and all of them have this robotify control and formant control. Already at this stage, Humanoid sounds way more like a vocoder than it sounds like a classical auto-tuning effect, and it's why I love it so much. If we look at the robotify control, then there is a cogwheel menu here, and if we open it up, we have more controls for it, like denoise, metallic, flatten, and emphasis. Essentially, Robotify will force the voice to sound more robotic and less natural. Now, on top of that, you've got a filter control here called Format
That will just shift all the
resonant frequencies
To kind of simulate a vocal track.
and this essentially gives you the ability to create a voice that sounds
Darker and deeper or lighter and
brighter.
Now there is a calibration mode for this thing, and we just press the cogwheel and we can see that we have a bandwidth control, and this will just change the curves.
of the filters so that more frequencies are getting affected by the forming shift.
You gotta admit, it's a little bit funny that I start talking about the vocoding stuff instead of actually talking about the auto-tuning stuff. I mean, this is an auto-tuner, right? So let's just look at the pitching modes. We got 3 of them. We got a scale mode, which lets us set a target key and a scale. And here we can see that we have some scales in here, but we're not locked to these because we can easily make our own scales by activating and deactivating notes in the keyboard. And the cool thing is that once you've set up a scale, if you want to change the target pitch again, it will just readjust the scale. So it's a very nice feature. Now, for those of you who are singers, this is kind of important to set up a proper target key. Basically, think of it as your root key, right? And then also to make sure that the range selector here, which you control by dragging this one from this side and dragging this one from this side, to only encapsulate the notes that you want this thing to auto-tune to, because otherwise you're going to get pitches jumping up and down. And now we start getting into T-pain land, and maybe you want that, but for me, it's no T. There's just pain. Now, the next mode actually does have 2 modes. It's got a mono and a duo, and it's basically what it sounds like. The mono mode will pitch everything to 1 note, and you set it up yourself in the keyboard. And then if you go to the duo, you get 2 notes. So you can have 1 root, and then you add another one up here in the second keyboard. MIDI mode, which is the third and last mode in here, is the most fun one, because if you're into harmonizers and or vocoders and you like playing chords, then this is the mode you want to select. You can use your MIDI keyboard with this or a pad controller if you're one of those beat making types, but it doesn't stop there because you can sequence this with MIDI from some other app or some other hardware. So if you want to send an arpeggiator in there, that could be cool too.
Look up, can you see the stars? I have found a way to become them all. Can you see the stars? I have found a way to become them all. Don't make me fall. Don't make me fall.
Now there is one control left here, and that is the lock one. And when you activate it, you're locking down this pitch panel. And then you can go up here and switch out presets and get different sounds with whatever pitch you've locked in. It's a very nice feature. Finally, we get to my most favorite thing, the Synthesize panel. And that's literally what it does. It synthesizes your voice. There are 2 controls in here that I want to point to first, and we're going to start with Transform, which basically just morphs between the pitch corrected vocal and also the resynthesized waveform. So the more you turn this up, the more of a synth character the voice is going to have. Now the second controller is the synthesis mix, and this crossfades between the pitch corrected signal and the synthesis section. And this then also includes whatever you've done with the note shift and octave voices. And what are those controls doing? Well, the note shift will add an additional synth line at a fixed interval, and this is bipolar, so you can either add a higher note or a lower note. Now you might think that the octave control is doing something similar but only in octaves. However, it's just blending in a signal that is either an octave up or octave down. Now this phase vocoder is fueled by a wavetable synthesis section, so there's a wavetable oscillator in here, and it actually comes packed with 64 waveforms. Now throughout the production of this video, I've been in very close contact with Baby Audio. They have been super helpful, and I've even tried helping them squash a bug. Secondly, they've also brought waveform import to the iOS version, because initially this was only possible on desktop and laptop systems. Now regarding the waveforms, I have a little pro tip for you. You can kind of view these waveforms as filters. Because if you want a sound that is kind of darker and less harsh, then I would recommend you go for waveforms that are more rounded off with less spiky harmonics in it. However, if you're trying to sculpt a sound with a better range for transients and high sibilance spectral content, then you should really go for waveforms that has a lot of spiky harmonics in it. Now, we have two controls called shape and stretch. Stretch basically just stretches the midpoint back and forward. It's kind of like a pulse width control, but for all of the waveforms, not just pulses. And the shape control actually allows you to reshape the harmonic content itself. And if we press the cogwheel here, we get a new menu where we have bipolar control over 4 odd and 3 even harmonics. So we can completely change these waveforms.
Jag kan mörka himmelen med min hand. Mörkret faller, allting dör. Jag kan mörka himmelen med min hand. Mörkret faller, snön blir röd. Jag kan mörka solen med min hand. Mörkret faller, allting dör. Jag kan mörka himmelen med min hand. Mörkret faller, snön blir röd.
Now, once the sound comes out of the auto-tuning and synthesizing sections, it goes straight through the filter section, where we can further reshape the spectral content of our sound. These are very straightforward and there are no calibration options. So we've got a low-pass filter and a high-pass filter. Both of them have resonance controls and they sure do look pretty steep once you tweak the resonance controls here. And I'm not sure if they are brick wall filtering exactly, but they do sound pretty steep when you use them. Now the third filter is called Boost, where we have a gain control, a frequency control, and a cue point slope control.
Right word is I want my surface clear from unwanted pop-ups. My little timid boy loves my money, so he's breaking it up in a million pieces. Tim just wants me to sing that song. Ding ding dong, let's get another dongle.
Now, once the sound comes out of the filter section, it goes straight into the effect section. And here we have 3 effects to work with. Widen works like a chorus, and if we check the calibration options, we get to adjust the cutoff and also the rate for the LFO. Now the second effect, warble, is basically a vibrato, and in its calibration options, we find a control for modulation rate. Lastly, we have a freeze effect, and when you activate this, you also get to work with a buffer for it. The buffer basically determines the length of the loop that the freeze effect will capture. And as you can see here, there is no calibration option, but there is this linked icon. And when you press that, the length of the buffer is now synced to note divisions of the host instead. Now lastly, we have the output control, and here we also have calibration options for input gain and a dry-wet control. So, do I suddenly love auto-tuning plugins? No. However, I never hated those plugins either. It's never been about hating the plugins, the plugin creators, or the plugin users. No, what I hate is a specific technique used with these plugins to create a specific type of sound, where the pitch warbles up and down wildly. In some cases it's random, in some cases it's sequence, and the way it's done doesn't matter to me. The overall sound that is being created with this technique, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. To tie this up, the reason to why I like Humanoid so much is that even though it is still an auto-tuning plugin and it is able to do that pitch warbling effect, the overall sound is nothing like the old stuff. It sounds completely different. It sounds more synth-like. And I'm so much into synthesis and vocal synthesis. And quite frankly, Humanoid ends up sounding like a vocoder. It feels like working with a synth, and the wavetable engine in here is great. I mean, it's so weird. Sometimes it sounds like weird time stretching, and sometimes it sounds like MP3 compression. I've already said it once, but I really do think that Baby Audio did a good job here. It's such a fresh experience working with this plugin, and I do highly recommend that you go get it. You can find a link down in the pinned comment. And while you're down there digging around in that pinned comment, why don't you join up in our attaQ Discord? It's a cozy, safe space where we can talk music, music making, music technologies, and it's a great place to keep track of me. If it feels like I've been gone for too long, you'll most likely find me chatting away over at Discord. I've been a member of the iOS music making community for 11 years, and I'll be here for even longer if you'll have me. So join up in our Discord and also go grab Humanoid. Oh, and before you leave, Agonizer Synthesizer is now available for Mac. You can get it as a separate purchase for $14.99, and that includes all of the previous upgrades we've done to Agonizer, including all of the previously released preset packs, which amounts to about 350 plus presets. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.
I want your pie right now. Give me pie right now.